Bodybuilding is much more of an art than it is a sport. I said it. Bodybuilding is much more of an art than it is a sport. Well, such question would certainly be raised when what you call sport is a competition wherein bunch of dudes almost naked, oiled up, standing next to each other, presenting themselves in the most beautiful and elegant way possible, trying to be present themselves as strong and capable. And the whole judging criteria on who is better is based on some subjective opinion, like who looks more aesthetic. It is much more equivalent to something as beauty and art than it is to the competitive art. But it's 100% a sport. There are no doubts in my mind about it. It's just, it encompasses beauty in such a way that the sport aspect of bodybuilding is almost overshadowed. What I mean by it is this: if you look at the interviews of people who have tried multiple sports, for example, take the best case example, Mitchell Hooper. He is literally the strongest man. He has won the world's strongest man multiple times. He started as an amateur bodybuilder. He was a runner. He was an endurance athlete, and then he went out to powerlifting and strongman. And he says the hardest sport that he has ever competed in was bodybuilding. Even though the sport is completely subjective, there are no set parameters that decide whether you would be better than the other person. It's just a visual appeal. But still, they say that this is the hardest sport. Why? The sport requires you to go into inhuman territory. See, most of the competitive bodybuilders on top stages like Mr. Olympia or Arnold Classic, and or if you're going to go into natural territory, the top of the WNBF shows or other natural federation shows, people who are competing there are reaching inhuman territories. What I mean by inhuman territories is you're reaching sub 5% body fat. This is something that is not what human body was designed to sustain at all. At that point, you're completely hungry. Like, you basically smell food when there is no food. You fight for every single calorie you have at that point in, and you still have to train hard, you still have to lift heavy, you still have to sweat, because otherwise you are not giving body enough signal to preserve the muscle, which otherwise would have been depleted if you maintain that caloric deficit. And it is really hard. For example, just think about it. Like I did, I cannot fast for I cannot live on 1,000 calorie deficit for long. It's really hard. Like if you want to try, just give it a go, and go about 1,000 calorie deficit from whatever you were eating. Let's just say your maintenance was about 2,500 calories. Try eating 1,500 calories in a day, and keep that for 2 to 3 days, and you'll eventually feel so down, your hormones go so down that you don't feel like doing anything. But those people still push past that, and the preparation for this sport is years long. For example, maybe there are no skill aspects of the sports. Like in my opinion, training is relatively straightforward. Obviously there are technicalities and one need to master the form of every exercise, but in all honesty, it is not that technical compared to other sports. For example, football, you have to learn skills, you have to you have to coordinate with other people. It's a game, right? There are other people on whom also you must trust so that you win the game or you make the shot. In bodybuilding, you are there all by yourself. There is no one else to blame and or no one else to go through with you. All you have is yourself. It's a really lonely sport. It's one of the loneliest sports out there. And what I the body that you admire and you see on this stage, maybe that was built by years of work. You cannot achieve that level of density and muscularity within a span of year or two, even if you take like copious amounts of steroids or anabolic, whatever you take, you're not getting there. The bodies that you see on the top stages, they needed decades to be built. Muscle gain is an extremely hard process. You are literally fighting with everything you have for 1 kilogram, adding that one more kilogram of muscle. And it is notoriously difficult for natural lifters compared to enhanced lifters, because your hormones are not in your control. Enhanced lifters can take exogenously, and then they can at least live to a baseline level, or in most cases they take so much they're always in elevated testosterone levels, which at least helps with their mood. But natural lifters, if you go down to body fats less than 10%, in all usual cases you would feel down. And think about it, if you were to maintain that for about a month and get leaner to 5% body fat all while training hard, that is really, really difficult. But this was the toughness part of the bodybuilding. And this makes it legitimately a sport. You are putting into training almost decades of your time, years on end, months on end. You have to eat right, you have to sleep on time, you have to do everything right that you can. And it is a continuous process. It's an extremely slow and grueling process. I believe it's much the same with other sports too. But with other sports, there are skill aspects which can compensate. But here, your absolute presentation is what matters the most. Everything has to be. Now, why did I say that bodybuilding is much more of an art than a sport? It's because think about it. We have evolved cultures which have rewarded beauty all over. Wars have been fought over for beauty. Just think about the Helen of Troy, a face that marched 1,000 ships, right? Well, just not just that beauty, even physical beauty was really appreciated in all over the cultures. If you look at the ancient sculptures of various civilizations, they portray an idealistic human body. Why? Because a healthy, visually appealing body gives signal of evolutionary fitness in most simple sense, if I put it. A stronger, a more muscular build would generally say that you're a healthy individual. Your metabolism is good. You don't have any other issues. You're strong and capable of moving things, basically, and surviving in this life. And then humans, as we always do, created art out of it. When you see Michelangelo's, or if you see the ancient Greek statues that have been carved out, you'll see the details and the finesse of muscles and presentation and overall. Like, it is so powerful. That is literally art. And bodybuilding, how it started, if you look back to Eugene Sandow and everybody, they really presented the art aspect of it. Like the human body could look this good. Beauty of the body was being presented. And eventually it evolved around the form of what we see in today's society, modern media. Although I find it little different that in today's world, aesthetics are far too weighed up, meaning they're given so much more importance than looking at it just through the perspective of art. For example, people are competing unnecessarily, not on a bodybuilding stage and of that matter, but people are chasing aesthetics meaninglessly. They're not chasing the art aspect of it, like just chasing it for the sake of it. They're chasing it so that they could compare with others and say who looks more beautiful, me or you. So I look better and I'm argue. That is not what I stand for. And that is not what even bodybuilding was supposed to stand. Bodybuilding is not just ever about sculpting yourself into a more beautiful human being. Look what you learn along the line. I was not as disciplined as I was before I started training in the gym. I became disciplined. I started sleeping on time. I started taking more care of myself. Everything started because I started to see the beauty of which my body was capable. Not just the beauty, but the strength and beauty of which was capable. So it is much more than just a sport and an art. In fact, it will teach you much more about life. It will tell you everything about you need to know about. One just needs to look through the eyes and appreciate the beauty of it. The most interesting part understand, or most interesting part I feel about bodybuilding is that you start off as one person, right? I started off as a skinny fat person, and through the course of years, you change yourself into someone else who is stronger, confident, looks better, and is more importantly a lot more healthier than you would have, a lot more stronger than you would. I mean, what else does a person need more than that? And in my opinion, everyone should do some form of resistance training. In your youth, you should see the vitality and beauty to which your body is capable. I'm not trying to preach some sort of look smaxer type of approach. No, I'm just putting it out there in terms of improvement and training, be it bodybuilding or perhaps any form of sports or anything, really helps one with the character. And it is much more than just a sport and or art. It'll tell you more about life than probably if you didn't. It's a beautiful thing.